So, Debbie, it appears we're back to politics because apparently there's a lot of news in politics.
Yes, there's always a lot happening in politics, and there's always a lot happening in the United States of America, thanks to their new president, who in his first 43, 44 odd days as president has done so much that it's actually
Yep,
sometimes hard to keep track.
it is. And you know what's interesting is you're in India and I'm actually in the US right now. So I can give you on the ground information.
You can be our reporter on the ground. Awesome. Let's get to it then.
Exactly. Welcome to Takaro, the podcast where we break down the news of today for you. I am Kiran.
And I am Debkanya. We're bringing you the latest from the United States and from President Trump's brand new presidency, his second term as President of the United States. And this time around, he's not sitting around and waiting for things to happen. He's actually doing a lot of work, as he claims himself. The
Yep.
latest being tariffs.
Well, he did promise it. He did promise it during his campaign when he was campaigning to be the president. And now he's actually been talking about it for the last, whatever, 3 or 4 weeks, and it's finally happened, right? It's crazy. So what has Trump
Yeah.
done?
Well, Trump has announced that he's been saying this for a while, and he's actually started off with China, where he said we are going to
Hmm.
put tariffs on everything that comes into the United States from China. And then the latest, of course, is that he said that there's going to be massive tariffs on things that are being imported from Mexico as well as from Canada. Right. And he's mentioned some other countries as well that can expect more tariffs. But I think, Kiran, before we go into this, shouldn't we explain what a tariff is?
Yeah, sure. So if you think about it, countries basically make products, make things, or grow
Hmm.
things. It could be agriculture, it could be semiconductors, it could be cars, it could be toys, it could be whatever, right? A country is
Yeah.
uh, building all these products. And if you're really good at it, very often you will sell it to others. You will sell it to other countries as well, right? So, you know, the US is a very big car manufacturer. But to make those cars, they actually have to buy parts from other parts of the world. So they have to buy,
Hmm.
maybe the horn comes from one country and the brake comes from another country and the tires come from a third country. So there's a lot of trade that happens between countries. And when you sell from one country to another, there is a price that you pay for it. Now, countries can put a tariff on certain products that are coming from certain countries. And so a tariff is almost like a tax. You have to pay extra to get that product from that country. So let's assume, the electric vehicles. Everyone's kind of buying electric vehicles now, even in the US. China is a big, big manufacturer of the EV batteries. And
Hmm.
so, if the EV battery is coming into the Tesla, which is made in the US, and Trump now has, well, imposed a tariff on those EV batteries, that means those EV batteries get more expensive. And he's basically imposed a tariff on China, any products coming out of China. So that tariff is suddenly making that EV battery more expensive. And I think the reason for this is he wants to protect US business. He wants people to build more in the US rather than depending on, other countries. It's very similar to, Modi's Make in India program, where we want to be more
Yeah.
self-sufficient and things like that. It's just that India has not imposed tariffs to do it. We are encouraging investment to kind of build more and grow more here. But Trump has basically gone very aggressive and said, I will now charge an extra amount called the tariff for any product that's coming out of China, that's coming out of Canada, and that's coming out of Mexico.
I mean, in if you look at it in one way, it is good for the United States for them to
It is,
encourage
sure.
more manufacturing, or for them to encourage more agriculture, whatever it might be, grow your
Yeah.
own
Yeah.
products, build your own products, right? Because that helps the local economy grow, it helps more people get jobs, the economy grows stronger. But there is a
Correct.
flip side to it, right? Because at the end of
Yeah.
the day, when a country is buying something, for example, like you said, we'll buy steel, the US buys steel from another country, brings it in to build cars. Who is actually going to take on that extra tariff? That is the big question that everyone is asking, right? Because if the
Hmm.
company has to pay extra money to bring steel into the United States, what is the company going to do? It's not going to use its own money to pay that extra tax, right? It is going to pass it on to the people buying. So who's buying?
You and me. Yeah.
You and me eventually, but the US companies are going to buy that steel. They're going to say, hey, because we're paying extra, the steel used to cost us 20 rupees before, now we have to pay 200 rupees. So this extra money we have to pass it on to the consumer. The end buyer, which is you and me, will end up paying that extra, the difference between 20 rupees and 200 rupees, because that's
Yeah.
just how much more expensive it is. And that makes things harder because that makes things more unaffordable, right? If things are unaffordable, people can't buy things. That affects the economy automatically over there. And
Hmm.
it automatically affects jobs as well, because these companies who suddenly are not selling as many cars as they used to before will cut jobs. They'll say, hey, we can't afford to employ so many people. There's a whole vicious cycle that this kind of kicks off, right?
Correct. And I think the problem is while you're trying to sort of build the local business, it's not overnight that you can suddenly increase steel production. It's not overnight
Mm.
that you can suddenly grow more crops. You really, really need to kind of take time to build that capacity in the country, right?
Yeah.
So when you say you and me, I mean, we're not living in the US. I am in the US right now, but we don't live here. So it's not like we are going to pay that price, but all the Americans are going to have to pay that increased amount for the interim till the US builds its capacity for EV batteries and steel and spices and whatever else it may be. There are certain parts of the US which are very rich in agricultural produce, but then it depends on Mexico for a lot of agriculture,
Like
right? So
avocados, for example.
exactly. So all of those things become expensive immediately the moment a tariff is imposed. And US will take time to build that capacity, even if they bring in investments and start growing avocado farms. It's not
Mm.
overnight that that fruit is going to basically pop out, right? So it will take time. And so till that happens, people are the ones who are going to pay more for that avocado or for that steel or for that car or for that, you
Yeah.
know, I don't know, cup that's coming from China.
Yeah, and then there's the other side to it, which is all these countries who are being asked to pay extra tariffs, right? For example,
Hmm.
Mexico, they are going to have their own tariffs as a retaliatory measure, right? They as a tit for tat.
Yep,
Let's put it like that. Because they were like, oh,
correct.
okay, so you're going to charge us extra for this, we will charge you extra for this. And that is the beginning of what is called a global trade war, right? And that is kind of playing out right now with the US and China, where China's like, we will charge you extra because you're charging us extra. Now Canada is saying we will also charge you extra because
Yeah.
it's a never-ending cycle there as well, right?
Yeah, because I think Justin Trudeau, who's the Canadian Prime Minister, I think he said something like, Mr. Trump, you're a very smart man, but this is a very stupid decision that you've made, right? Because
Yeah.
it affects the individual. It's very easy for a country's president to come in and say, I'm going to impose a tax on anything that comes from Mexico or Canada or China. But it's the individual people who will have to pay that price in the interim period. Maybe over a period of time, it's good for the US, but there will be a point of time over the next year or 2 years if this continues, where there will be inflation because prices will increase, people will need to spend more on the average product that they buy every day. And the interesting thing is Trump's whole point is I will give you more money to be able to manage these increased costs because he is trying to reduce taxes and the amount of
Mm.
taxes people have to pay. So his whole point is I will give you more money in your wallet so you don't have to spend it on taxes, but you can then kind of balance the tariffs, which result in increased prices. So, you know, it kind of makes sense, but at the same time, it's such a flat world today that it's really stupid to be fighting with each other rather than collaborating.
Yeah, but I mean, I think Trump's perspective is that so far the world has been unfair to the US and been taken advantage of the
Hmm.
US. So that's why he's like, I need to shake things up and,
Yeah,
make it so that the US benefits, right? So far. And he's actually even called out India. He's like, if countries like India charge us such massive tariffs because India imports a lot of cars from the US. So he's like, if India
yeah.
is going to charge us heavy tariffs for cars, we're going to do something about that as well. So right now, of course, the latest on that is there's a lot of backroom negotiation. Basically, leaders are sitting together discussing, figuring out, how can we not go down this road, how can we make things work for so that both parties are happy. So a lot of that is going on, a lot of negotiating, a lot of
Mm,
deal
mm.
making is happening in the background. So it'll be interesting to see what finally happens. Also, by the way, the tariffs that we were talking about, automakers have been given some kind of
Yeah,
leeway for another month or
one
so,
month.
right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But only the
Yeah.
big guys, like Ford and GM and all of those US manufacturers have been given one month to kind of figure out how to deal with it. It'll be interesting. I mean, one thing you've got to give kudos to Trump is that he came in with an agenda and he is going at it. He's not like
Yeah.
stopping, he's not, you know, waiting to get feedback. He's just going at it and saying, hey, this is what I said I would do, and I'm doing it. So, yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, it's interesting to watch how he's been implementing a lot of things that he promised that he would. But
Hmm.
it's not usually how a democracy works. And that is the question that a lot of people are asking
Yeah.
because democracy works differently. And for our very young listeners, a democracy is basically where you get to choose who your leader is going to be and you get to decide what is going to ultimately happen in your country, right? The big decisions that are taken by the leaders that you have chosen for a particular reason. And Trump has been chosen for a particular reason. Some people will say this is exactly what we wanted, but there's a group of people who also are not very happy. But this is a long game, and we are going to keep monitoring this, right, Kiran? Because there's still too much
Yes, we
happening.
are. Because there's too much happening and in such a short time. I mean, this is the not even the first quarter, not even the first 3 months of his presidency, and there are years of this to continue. So, I mean, let's see what happens.
He's already, Trump has already spent 1.5 hours actually just now this week talking about all the things that he's done. So there's going to be a lot more coming from him, surely. And we will keep covering that for you. But before we end this episode, we have not forgotten that there has got to be a quiz in each episode.
There has got to be a quiz.
There
Yeah.
has got to be a quiz. Exactly.
Yeah.
And this week's question, Kiran?
Oh, I'm asking it. Okay, cool.
Yes, you are asking
So,
it.
we have talked about it for the last 10, 12, 13 minutes, whatever it's been. But here's a quiz question. So, it's an easy one. Which are the three main countries that Trump has imposed tariffs on so far? The options are no, we're not giving you options because it was too easy. So send
Yeah,
in your
you mentioned
answers.
them many times.
Yeah, send in your answers, and one lucky winner is going to get a gift card.
Yay. And on that note, let's announce last week's winner as well. If you remember the
Mhm.
question, we had talked about a lot of developments from the world of science, and we talked about the parade of planets, where we spoke about how 7 planets were going to line up. I hope some of you managed to catch it to see all
Mhm.
7 planets lined up, the eighth being the planet that you are currently sitting slash standing on. Well, the question we asked was, what is Pluto called now? Pluto was demoted from being a planet to being something else. What is Pluto now? And we got an answer from Anika from Bangalore, who told us that Pluto
Woohoo!
is a dwarf planet.
Congrats, Anika! Yay! So your gift card is going to be on its way. very, very soon.
Great. I think we will wrap up this episode. We hope it was, simple enough to understand what a tariff is. If you have any questions or feedback on this episode or any other episode that you've heard before, let us know. All you have to do is go to takarokids.com. That's our website. That's also where you can answer this week's quiz question and, become eligible to win that gift from us.
And until next week, have a good week. Bye-bye.
Bye.